Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here, kind of towards the end of your day. My name's Colin Swift with Impact Communications, and welcome to Content Marketing in the Age of AI-Powered Search. I have Shauna Ohm of Content 151 with me, as well as Paul Gilbert of Myriad Advisor Solutions. And we're going to talk today a little bit about how financial advisors can actually leverage AI and get some real results with that. Before we jump in, a little bit about us, and Sean, I'm going to steal what you've been talking about with us all week. This is the part where we tell you why you should listen to us and kind of our expertise and why we know what we're talking about and why you joined us today. Up first, we'll go with Shauna. So Shauna is the founder of Content 151, but she also has 5+ years as a financial journalist in both broadcast, print, and digital markets. She's got over 6 years of developing content and marketing strategy for major banks and BDs, and another 6 years running the content marketing firm Content 151, focused on financial advisors and fintech providers.
Actually, Paul,
Paul
do you
with
want to skip
Myriad.
to the slide that has all of this on there? So
Oh,
the
yes, yes. Yes, let's get that going. There we go.
Paul with Myriad Advisors, he's the marketing manager at Myriad, which supports over 400 advisory firms across marketing, technology, and operations, helping independent advisors basically run their business. He also has 10+ years of experience helping clients navigate digital marketing in the complex regulated environments that is out there. And then I myself, Colin Swift with Impact Communications. I am the director of social digital strategy at Impact. And basically what that means is I'm helping advisory firms build and grow their online presence. I have over 6 years of experience building and creating digital media and digital content for advisors specifically. So that's kind of the gist of why you should listen to us. So
Colin,
with that,
I think the ChatGPT summary of this would basically say that we are people who eat, sleep, and breathe marketing specifically for financial advisors. That's like the
yes.
Yes.
quick TLDR of it.
100%. Everything we're going to talk about from our marketing expertise is geared and focused for independent financial advisors. So with that, let's jump right in. So the first thing I'm going to tee you guys up on is how does the internet work when you really kind of look under the hood? I'm sure a lot of advisors have heard terms like SEO, the new term AEO, and I'm sure a lot of them maybe have a little bit of an understanding about that, but not a deep understanding about that because they want to focus on working with clients. So let's help them out and talk about what's under the hood of the internet.
And also, I know, Paul, you're going to lead with this one, but before anyone's eyes glaze over, the reason we're queuing it up this way is because we want you to be able to cut through, for lack of a better word, the bullshit when you get a lot of these pitches about AI and how you need to do this and you need to do that. People are banking on you guys not understanding how it works or how it's different from the internet as the internet currently is. So we want to kind of get you started here so that you understand A, what we're talking about, but B, you can kind of understand what everyone else is talking about when you get pitched or sold or this, that, or the other. I'll stop
Great.
interrupting now. Sorry about that.
No,
Go
no,
ahead,
no.
Paul.
It's great, Shauna. No, that's a great tee up to this. So we're all more or less cognizant of how the internet works now, right? How search works. So the front end is pulling those individual web pages and pulling from aggregator sites and social media. In the back end, you have that traffic and engagement that drive and interlinking, which drive results, as well as the things like metadata, image tags, alt tags, those types of things, your readability and accessibility metrics, and the platforms that you're on. All of that, the on-page and the off-page things work together to put you on the search engine results page. And how does that work? Well, Google, through its different algorithms, looks at different things and says, yes, when somebody's searching for this specific term, this is the best and the most relevant one I think that I can find, and it puts you up there along with others. And you can adjust those filters by different ways, and choose what you want to use before deciding to learn more. And that's where they interact with your site. Now, the interesting thing is what is starting to happen now, which is this little thing called AI come into play. not that long ago. And what does AI do? AI does a lot of different things, but it acts as an aggregator and a research tool that looks across those same web pages, but then it also pulls in things like Medium and Reddit as well, and Facebook and X, because it's looking for questions. And what ends up happening is those back-end things are still present, but the search engine and the search engine rankings feed in, but you have this AI algorithm operating, and that natural language processing and machine learning is taking longer questions and specific questions and going out and try to find those answers. It really looks at a holistic summary of your query. It isn't just the keywords. And what happens with that is that you are provided with a whole lot of information and decide if that is right for you. And as the users are doing this and people are doing this, what you find and what is happening is that you find that your search or your website is now optional. And we're going to show you an example of that. So this is the traditional one that I think we're all used to seeing, with a question about how to roll over a 401k. Well, there's the sponsored result, then there's the Google Spotlights, and then there's the highest ranking results, right? So you can see how that works. And this is something we're all familiar with, right? So the sponsored results, the little snippets, how long to roll over, all of those different things. Then you have the highest ranking results, which would, IRS, of course, it's a .gov site, so it has a lot of credibility. It's going to show up first, and it shows rollovers of retirement plan and IRA distributions. I don't know about you, but I can't think of a more sleep-inducing thing than looking at IRS code and trying to find out.
The other thing
Go
too
ahead,
is
Sean.
that I know the IRS isn't the sexiest example, but the NerdWallet one as well. You can see the dates, but these the content creators, so the IRS, the marketing manager there, and the people at NerdWallet, they're kind of creating, or they have the power to create those summaries that are being displayed. There's a manual input. So we as marketing directors, when we're working with firms, we have some control over how we describe those things so that when you pop up, if we do everything right on the back end in these results, that description is enticing and people want to click on it. The problem is that we lose some of that control with how everything is changing. You can kind of start to see, like, Google's job is to make you stay on Google. Google wants you to engage with Google. They're capitalist self-preservation. So you can even see this here with the Google Spotlights, right? So back in the day, you would search one thing and they would just show you results, but then they started adding in all these other search terms, all these other search results. Hey, maybe this will give you better answers, because they want you to engage more with Google. And AI is the next natural evolution of that. So that's sort of the next slide here.
Yeah. So now you pull in the AI results and you have Gemini's nice AI overview. And as you go in, you can see these different questions, right? So it's showing
so
some
those
of these
definitions we can't control. That's the difference,
Yes.
right? So yes, you're getting shown up there because you have a lot of good information, but you notice that those results are a little bit different, and there's no control over what's kind of going into those.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you can see the
Plus
different.
everything's Paul is highlighting, and this is my fault. I built how the functionality on this deck worked, but you can see that this AI summary also kind of generates more questions than answers, right? So if you're a layman who has searched this, you're a regular person, and you're like, okay, well, what are the potential penalties? It doesn't tell you that. How do I open an IRA? It doesn't tell you that. Who's the 401k plan administrator? If you don't know all the details of how a 401k works, that's a question. And the only thing you have to get more information is that little link icon. You don't know where it's going to. You don't have, like, you're basically taking a leap of faith. Google's kind of banking on you not wanting to take that leap of faith because it wants you to stay on Google, right? So it's kind of genuinely changing the game where your site has become optional. And yes, people might still end up on your site, but it's not that spotlighted element that it was previously.
No,
Which
not at
isn't
all.
necessarily
And
bad. It's just different.
yeah, it's different, and it's a more best way to describe it is it's more of that you're engaging in a dialogue, almost like you're talking to a trusted source about how to roll over a 401k, and you get all of this information that is different than the way Google wanted you to show up on Google, and the things that you can engineer for are no longer able to be engineered for. So it makes it interesting, and it makes it more and more of a challenge. And especially as we see search volumes decrease and more things happen with AEO and the long language models going out and finding information and then citing it back to the people who are doing the search. So.
The other thing to kind of note here is that earlier, like at the beginning of 2025, only maybe 30% of people were reading those summaries. A lot of people didn't trust them. They didn't love AI. They kind of bypassed them. Google went all in on those summaries, right? So it reduced the number of results that you would see underneath that summary, right? If you keep scrolling, it kind of truncated all of those, all with the aim of pushing people to read AI summaries. And now 87% of people say they're using those summaries. And I'm guilty of this too, right? Like I prefer to go to the original source, but they have been so good at pushing that information that if I don't need a complex answer, I will read them. Now, that also means that I spend a lot of time reading them and realizing that they're wrong or that they're not giving me the right information and seeing the flaws in them. So there is still a lot of opportunity there. People are still skeptical. And that's one of the things we're kind of getting at here, in that it's not necessarily us labeling it good or bad. It's us saying you have to realize how drastically the game is changing so that you can play the right game. If you're still optimizing just for SEO, you're playing the wrong game.
Right. Exactly. And you know, especially so looking at it that different way, like the past, it really was a library. It's a big card catalog for those who still remember card catalogs. We can go in and, oh, excuse me, and search for that information. And how did you win? Well, if the search was popular, if you had a good summary on the card that appealed to people, like the descriptions and the things that you see in Google, or if the librarian recommended you, if you had enough, if people were searching and asking for something enough, she would recommend it. And that's exactly how Google works. So talking about it from a Google perspective, it's SEO, it's keyword optimization, it's the information is a gateway. And what you find is that, you zero in on a certain set of keywords and you get one or two wins and you start to propagate and have success that way. Moving forward, this is probably something that Robert Kennedy may not like, but the internet is fast food. And AI is really serving up something that is, it's essentially a pre-made meal. You can bypass all of the ingredients, all the things that you've been used to searching for or using different terms to try to narrow in on things. They're bypassed. And a lot of us still don't trust that chef. But we're seeing more and more traffic. As Shauna had said, it's growing every day and growing rapidly. And the way you win is exploiting the niches and finding the foodies, if you will. So getting in front of them with the right content, getting things that make you stand out based upon who you are and what your message is. Authentic content will be driving things much more than it has before. Say that authentic content has always been great, but this is where it starts to really make distinctions.
It's the basics of capitalism, right? So I am far from a health food nut. have a diet Pepsi sitting right here. But for a while I was a vegetarian, and back in the day, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Burger King didn't have any vegetarian options on its menu. Now it does. But I couldn't eat fast food, right? So there are plenty of people who are not going to want the pre-made responses that AI gives it because they have equity stock options or they have a complicated financial situation where they can't get the pre-made advice on an estate plan. There are also going to be people who don't want that prepackaged advice because they don't want that meal in a box. So, or there's people who are like me now, where I tend to only eat fast food on road trips and I love it, but I'm not going to eat it every day if there's a better option available, right? So people are going to love the convenience of AI, but that doesn't mean they're not also going to look for your site. And that's kind of where we're leaning into this. But the other thing is that early adoption is key, right? So going back to that fast food vegetarian analogy, Burger King was the first fast food restaurant to get a veggie burger. So for a long time, I went to Burger King, even though I'd previously been a McDonald's girl, right? So if you can acknowledge this and start to lean into these changes now, you are going to win over some of that, some of those eyeballs, because AI is looking for information, right? AI is like Google. It wants people to use it. So if you serve it the stuff that it wants and needs, it's going to prioritize your information. So there's this kind of brief window, given how fast people are kind of, how exponentially quick people are kind of taking up this technology. You have this window to really get in on that ground floor. And that's what we want to encourage you to do here with some of these tips that we're going to give.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, we should probably get to them.
Yeah. So how do you stand out? So there's a different series of things to do. Colin, I'm sorry to interrupt. What were you gonna?
No, I was gonna move us right along. I think that the fast food AI analogy is great. I think thinking of AI as a McDonald's burger where it's getting passed through really quick to different people, to wrapped up, handed to you. It's going to be, you're not going to know what's in it. You're not going to be able to trust it. But I mean, I don't know about you guys. I would prefer a local burger stand that has their own flavor, their own old salty grill, rather than a McDonald's burger. And I think that's a perfect analogy for your niches. Like, be that unique burger stand that is going to attract the foodie, the burger people who don't just want the same old bland McDonald's burger. So how can we do that?
Can you all tell that we're all from the Midwest here, that we're just really leaning into this meat and potatoes analogy? I feel bad now that I put like the least sexy kind of part of this right up front, because it's that back end optimization. But these are those easy wins that you want to clock right now, because they spiral. So Paul, what you were showing earlier with those SEO results, Fidelity, because it's a sponsored result, it gets a ton of traffic, and then it starts to generate organic results, and then it becomes an organic top result as well. So we want you to be able to do that now with some of these things, with the local search results, with all of that, because we want you to get in on that ground floor. So I'll stop talking again and let Paul take over.
No, that's great. No, it's definitely right. You start local. Google loves the local level, and you start there, and you can see all of the different ways that comes about. That simple Google search, financial advisor near me, you get a ton of different things. You get the left-hand side, the part one, the sponsored results, and then down into the organic results, and you can see all of those.
But there's no AI here. Do you notice that?
No.
Like, there's no AI on these pages. It is you see the sponsored, but they're very clearly called out, and people don't necessarily trust the paid. And then it goes into these organic results, where the unifying factor, by the way, is that they all have reviews. So if you don't have a Google business page and you don't have testimonials or reviews enabled, you are kneecapping yourself from showing up in these top results. And then on the right, it's the aggregate site. So if you don't have your name in with sort of NAPFA or the Fuel and the Advisor Network or some of those other aggregators, you're also kneecapping yourself. So those are really easy wins.
Exactly.
Just to jump in on that point, Shauna. So we actually worked with a firm outside of Detroit in Michigan, and that was one of the things they wanted to focus on, was getting their Google reviews up. And so we did a full campaign, and they went from not even being on this list that we're seeing here to exploding with over 100 5-star reviews from their clients. And they're now one of the top organic search results. If you Google for a financial advisor in their area, or in their local area, if you look by name, they're always either the top one or the second one, and they don't have to do any sponsored or paid finaglings with Google to get that high. It was just a concerted effort to get some Google reviews onto their Google business page, and it shot them right to the top. So that really does have a lot of value, especially in this organic search aspect.
Yep.
And a lot of advisors are going to say, like, what about compliance? And the thing is, the rules that the SEC has put out say that you have to be equal in how you sort of solicit these reviews. So you can't go to your clients who you know love you and say, hey, post a Google review. So there's ways that you can solicit these by, say, putting it in your email signatures, which goes to everyone, putting it on your website. Like, if you like us, review us on Google, sending out an email blast that everyone gets saying, please review us. 90% of the time, the people who leave reviews are either going to be people who absolutely love you or who absolutely loathe you. And chances are your clients are going to fall into the former category. So you are following the rules. You are asking everyone. It's just that the only people who tend to be motivated enough to go and actually do that are going to be the people who love you. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up with really positive reviews just by asking everyone to do them. And you're going to fall well within the SEC's guidelines on that.
100%.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think we already hit on a lot of these.
We've hit on this. So to summarize, work inside out, right? Local to the outside, physical offices, reviews, get the profile make it complete. Images, hours, all of those different things. It all adds up. We'll talk about content more as we go here. And as Shauna was saying, get listed in those business directories too. So. But
and that doesn't just have to be advisors, by the way. It can be local chambers of commerce. So if you're not fee only and you can't apply to that, like there are ways to think outside of the box on this if you don't feel like you align with some of the organizations that we just named. So just showing up in aggregators that will link back to your site, that's the key part.
Absolutely. And also check behind the scenes, right? So it's not only the front end, it's the back end. Your site should be really nicely organized and labeled. Make sure the alt text image or the alt text is on the images. Schema markup is very important. This is just a way for Google and for the long language models to identify what your site is trying to do and what those things are that can help. And we've helped a couple of people recently with some LLM schema around the frequently asked questions. And they're seeing good results with that. And just make sure
the schema, if you don't know, is like it's a cheat sheet for your website that the readers of your website don't see. So it only exists behind the scenes. So it's this sort of metadata code that just tells Google AI, anyone who's crawling the back end of your site, hey, this is what this page is about. This is what they're telling you. And it can convey information that isn't on that main page that faces consumers. So it's a little bit of a secret weapon. And most people like you or I, or people who are just dealing with the front end, might not know it's there, but it's all critical. And this is where this is fun. Like, this is a really cool and fun way to use AI. Everyone thinks of the obvious things, like, can AI create content or all this kind of stuff? But AI can help you, A, understand, and B, start to write some of those summaries in a way that is optimized for AI, because it knows itself, right? So actually, if you go to the next slide, Paul, we kind of broke down what you can do in terms of action steps. So Google Search Console is a really good cheat sheet for a lot of this. So you might have heard of Google Analytics. Google Search Console is kind of paired with that, where you just have to sign up for it. And actually, I can take over and show you the way that it looks for my website. Just so you kind of get a handle on. Ooh, I had the window all teed up for you guys, and then it went away. You guys remember I showed it right before the call, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Core Web Vitals. There we go. So when you sign up for it, this is sort of the landing page. And the main things that you're going to want to look at are pages and Core Web Vitals. So pages will kind of show you all of your pages. So now I have all of these non-index pages, and some of these are because we were creating landing pages or content to test out new writing, new creative approaches, and it will tell you why things aren't indexed. And this will be, not indexed means it's going to have a hard time showing up on search results. And so if Google is analyzing it and not indexing it, that's going to be that it's been canonical. Google's done the canonical work, but it hasn't been indexed. And you can kind of start to find out those analytics. So you can get insights here, you can get overviews, and then page speed is going to be really important. So that's this core web vitals. Now this might seem jarring, right? Not enough data. So for you to have data on the Google Search Console, you have to have thousands of views a month. So this is for sort of those big sites. So a lot of advisor websites are going to have a site that looks just like this, not enough vitals. So you can click this, try Page Insights, and it will take you here, which is going to give you an analysis of your website on desktop and on mobile. And it's going to tell you what it kind of breaks down to. So my performance issues here are because of the host that I use on my site, which isn't formatting the images correctly, and I haven't manually gone in and changed it because it hasn't been a major deal for me just yet. But it will break down for you what the issues are. It kind of shows you all of these here, and you can get more information on any of these things. A lot of these things, see, that's why I'm telling you the host is kind of creating issues. You can go into a lot of these things, copy and paste the issue if you don't understand it, which frankly, a lot of us don't. My boyfriend, who I live with, is a tech developer, which is the reason I know a lot of this, because I can just yell across the room and ask him. But a lot of us don't have that benefit. So you can copy and paste this into ChatGPT or into AI, and it will tell you what it means, and you could oftentimes ask you to write a solution for it. So this is a really unique and innovative way to kind of work with AI. So one of the things that it told me on these pages were things that were not being indexed. Was that it told me one of my blog pages, like these were all of my pages that were being canonized, that were being reviewed, but were not being indexed. And I was surprised by this. I was looking, hey, these are actual content pages that I've created that should have been indexed. So what's going on with that? And I pulled it up and I asked AI, what's going on here? And it gave me these subjective answers, suggested some things that were wrong, said that, it probably wasn't being in the canon of Google. And I had to say, it's been crawled. It just hasn't been indexed. And it gave me updated answers. So just kind of wanted to walk you through how simple this can be, and that AI doesn't always get it right. There are sometimes going to be things like that page should have been indexed. So I'm going to have to dive a few layers deeper. So it isn't always going to be AI. Sometimes we are going to have to pull in that human element, but it is a really clever way of using AI that isn't just, I'm going to create content or I'm going to create an image. It's making that back end optimized so that AI crawlers will like your site.
Yeah. It's really one thing that AI excels in is just doing that kind of back end work and giving you the advice that you need to get things set up correctly.
Like one thing you'll see is there's often a disconnect between what AI is looking for and what AI creates and generates. But this is one of those rare instances where the two things align really well. So exploit that while you can.
Yes. And then the other thing, and as part of that and using AI, you add the schema and those back-end improvements and removing the PDFs. PDFs are something that just does not get read by Google. It doesn't even acknowledge them.
It doesn't
Sean,
crawl them to see, like you
Yeah.
saw those pages where it said crawled, but not it. So if it's a PDF, Google essentially looks at that as a fancy image. So unless you have alt text or some back end coding, so schema and other things that essentially translate that PDF, it basically doesn't exist. So again, this is where AI can come in handy. You can have AI translate that PDF or a video or anything like that to make sure you have that back end coda for you. But an easier way of doing it would be to translate it to HTML and make it readable and accessible. So you can say things like, hey, ChatGPT, write a schema for this page, write a schema for this landing page, and kind of see what it spits out. But these are those sort of things that AI excels at, right? And it's also stuff that, frankly, you don't want to translate a PDF into text. That's not a good use of your time. So this is a great way to lean in.
Absolutely. And it moves into then the long-term, the long-term play is getting a variety of contact types out there for that visibility and credibility, and making sure you do it strategically. Don't bounce around. Don't chase the squirrels. Make it strategic and aligned with who you are as a firm and who your clients are and what they want to hear. So.
All right. Sounds like we're getting to the fun part now. So now that we know all the back end stuff, we've looked under the hood. We've discussed kind of the works of AI. How can we use AI to help us create content that stands out, that helps us find our niche clients, our perfect clients? How do we go about doing that?
Well,
This is my favorite slide. Because we keep talking about the disconnect between what AI creates and what AI is looking for, and this really maps it out, I think. So
I think it really does. That, when AI is creating content, and I know that there's probably several of you that have done this, but if you go into ChatGPT or Perplexity of any of those, or Gemini, it's very generic, and it's not very
generic
original.
by design, right? It's summarizing all of the content that is on the internet, right? It is by design not going to create an original perspective. It is going to summarize everything that's already out there, and it's going to link out to that content if it has to. Whereas what it's looking for is content that it wants to link out to, right? So if you have a lot of people linking to your content saying they are the authority on XYZ or look at this, then that signals to AI, hey, this person has an original idea. A lot of people are referencing them. I should look at it. It should be the first thing that I summarize, right? So the way that AI functions by summarizing other content is by definition exactly what AI itself is not looking for. So it's a little bit of that, if you think about it too long, it might make your brain hurt. But if you use AI to create content, you're essentially creating the exact same thing that the AI algorithms don't want.
Which is hilarious. And
frustrating, I know.
Yeah, it is. And I think the one caveat with that too, and I think we've all seen this before too, is, AI will get things wrong. And that can lead to a whole set of issues with compliance and other things, but it really can, it does its best, but the mistakes are in the source code or in the sources that it's looking for. So I mean think about the internet.
There's two good examples of this in my mind. One is how bonuses are taxed. So there's content I found on TurboTax and other places that will say that bonus compensation is taxed at a different rate than regular income. And it's not. It's that the withholdings are done differently and on a state-by-state basis. And therefore, it looks like it's taxed differently because the withholdings are different, but then it ends up being taxed as regular income, and everyone is slapped with a surprise tax bill. And then they go and they Google it because why do they have the surprise tax bill? And the information that's out there is wrong. This is a prime example of something that someone's going to go ask ChatGPT about, right? Like, why do I owe tax on my bonus when things were withheld? And if TurboTax has this wrong answer because they paid a freelance writer who didn't know any better to kind of populate it, then ChatGPT is also going to have the wrong answer. And these are those weaknesses that you can exploit. But ChatGPT or Gemini are only going to listen to you calling out that wrongness if you've already established yourself as a credible source with original content, with press mentions, with those references in those directories. So that's why we kind of lean into this. AI isn't enough, and you need this multifaceted marketing best practices strategy, because as much as it doesn't fit into a great soundbite, all of those factors come into play. But at the end of the day, the kernel of it is AI is going to get stuff wrong, and you need to have the right content, and you need to have all the back end stuff in place so that AI listens to you for having the right content.
Yep. Which is still just, this is a great slide. It's very interesting because, like you said, AI creates generic content, but it is not necessarily looking for generic content. It looks for expertise and authority, and it's not looking to summarize just the summary. It wants good, original, authentic content aligned to audiences. And it also looks for things that give the content credibility as well. Backlinks, links to other respected sources help with that. And while it generates on consistency, it values something other than consistency. Consistency builds confidence within the language learning model, the long language models, but AI values that frequency and clarity and volume as well. And it always moves expertise and authority to the front. And the interesting thing is you find out how much Reddit is coming into play more and more with AI searches, because there's a lot of expertise, there's a lot of backlinking, but there's also a lot of questions. And as AI looks for different things, it's looking for answers to those questions.
Actually, there's a couple really good points buried in there a little bit too, Paul, is the why behind that. So Reddit doesn't allow marketing content, right? So if you go on Reddit, and this goes back to my days in news, if you would go on Reddit and kind of post something asking for a source for a story, it would flag you and remove it because it's got all those sort of user human verifications built in. And same thing with marketing. And actually, one of the reasons Google will, crawl a page and then not index it is because it thinks it's marketing content. So if it thinks that there's no educational value to a piece of content, it won't index it. So it is almost on the lookout for things that are too marketing heavy, the same way that Reddit is on the lookout for it. That is a good thing for independent advisors, because a lot of the big guys, the Fidelities, the Bank of Americas, which is Merrill Edge and Merrill Lynch and all of those, they're definitely thinking about marketing, and they're definitely thinking about promoting their products, and there is that marketing element. So this is a way to kind of find an in as an independent advisor. So the other catch-22 that's part of all of this is part of that credibility can come from consistent posting. So a lot of advisors I know will look to ChatGPT or AI to create content because it can be consistent. If you get busy with client meetings or whatever else, it can create that content on a schedule and put it out, and that helps build consistency and build credibility. But that consistency is no longer going to be enough, right? So when the AI algorithm looks at it, when the Reddit algorithm looks at it, that consistency is such a smaller part of the pie. So yes, it's that catch-22, like you want that consistency, but using AI to get it, you're also sacrificing things that matter more. So there are other ways to get that consistency with the credibility, whether it's working with an agency, adding those human layers on. We have a bunch of ideas on that front, but just that's that word of caution before you lean too far into AI as a crutch.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to jump in here. I think what we kind of impact like to visualize for this is a spider web. When you think of your marketing, especially online, you want to have a spider web. The center of your spider web is going to be your site. You're going to want to have people there, but you're going to have all these different things backlinking to different content, whether it's a blog, whether it's getting mentioned in the media with some PR resources, or other kind of strings that can make your spider web bigger to show you as an expert in a wide area all over the internet, and continuously bring AI back to your site. So it's continuously finding you as an expert and finding your site, and it's going to quote you as more of an expert if it can do that.
Oh, another fun Reddit fun fact too is that Reddit and some of these other like Medium sites, they ask you to share your credentials when you post a response so that people know whether they can listen to you or not and upvote you or downvote you. It's that essentially there's a credibility rater factor built in there. So you essentially get to brag about your credentials before anything kind of comes across, and it's encouraged. So, all those credentials that sometimes feel like alphabet soup after your name, this is looking for that. It's talking those up, and that's going to help you with getting upvoted and getting those positive reviews.
Absolutely. It's great. And,
compliance is another fun one.
Oh, yeah.
So my favorite compliance, like when AI had first kind of come out and we were testing out different ways to use it, and I had clients who wanted us to kind of to play around with it. And if you put a website, like a blog content piece into AI and say, create, 5 social posts for this, like 3.5 of them are going to be made up of the disclaimers and disclosures at the bottom of the page, because AI doesn't know how to distinguish those two unless you code it specific in a certain type of specific way on your site, which not all developers do, not all compliance firms like. And that's going to confuse the heck out of AI when it's generating content. And then when AI is crawling for content, if you don't kind of mark those as separate stuff, it can also confuse it. So this is where that back-end plumbing is really important, because AI, when it's serving content up does not care about your internal processes or what your compliance team said. We do, you do, but we want it to get discovered, and we need to realize that AI doesn't have the same respect for the compliance department that we do.
Yeah, yeah, it's I guess to bring it back to the fast food analogy, it's about eat, right? So expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness. And that's what you need to have as you put your content together and make it stand out, right? We talked about the credibility. Cover the basics, but you post and update consistently and give yourself the ability to highlight that expertise in multiple ways. And look at topics that align with your audience. And this is where, oh, Shauna, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was going to say, if like with content that covers the basics, right? The things that, and this slide kind of all blends together, but the things that get a person to your website, so say you do really great on a niche idea and someone comes to your site and they realize you're an advisor and they've got questions, you also still have to have the basics on there. So you might not win the AI search results on Roth IRAs because there's so much content, it's so saturated out there already, but you still need the people who come to your site to know that you are competent and expert in those as well. So you want to make sure that you still cover all those bases. And that's one of the reasons, my firm and Paul's firm have partnered together with a sort of starter blog where we create these customized pieces so that advisors can check that off really easily in a customized way that shows their personality without having to spend too much time or energy on that, because we want you to focus on the things that are going to deliver those high impact results as well, and sort of keep that thread going. So that's where that basics and making sure they're updated and reflecting everything, and that they highlight your expertise and how you approach them, right? Because everyone's going to talk about Roths in a different way, whether you contribute to them in a low income year, whether you roll over during market dips. Everyone has that unique approach, and we can always highlight that.
Mm-hmm. It really comes down to, I love that line, write like a journalist, read like a client. So that is always interesting to think about, but you want to write so that you're giving that
who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Yeah, exactly. The five W's and the H, but then read it like a client. And what we want to get across there, and what we work with when we work with Shauna, and as we've developed this partnership, marketing matters. And what we want to make sure is that as we're putting this together, what we know, what gets a person to your website, what makes them want to work with you, and how are these things connected? Do you understand the difference? What is it about your firm that makes you stand out in a large number of firms anywhere in the US? So that's where we bring our expertise and our ability to personalize the content into your firm.
So I love an analogy, if you couldn't tell, with the fast food. My favorite analogy for this one is actually car-based, so going back to under the hood. But if someone's searching, for instance, how to fix a transmission, yes, they want to know how to fix their transmission, but they're going to hit a point where it's like, I don't want to do this myself. Right? Or frankly, I shouldn't be doing this myself, because if I do it myself, my car is not going to be roadworthy. And so you need to kind of have that clarifying factor of, yes, write it like a journalist, who, what, when, where, why, how, but read it like a client, right? At what point are you kind of crossing out of that realm of DIY expertise and saying, like, this is when you should probably take it into a shop? And there's an art to doing that so that it feels organic, and also so that it doesn't feel like marketing, right? Because if it's too salesy or gimmicky, it's going to get flagged. So it's making sure that what brought the person to your site, how do you fix a transmission, that you keep them engaged and then keep them on your site for the reason you want them to be there. That conversion is the sort of art of marketing. And people tend to talk about it in really complex terms around the funnel and all of that other stuff. But that's where I think taking a step back and looking at another industry or another topic makes it easier to see it clearly, right? You want them to come to your site because they have questions about the spousal IRA inheritance rules, but at the end of the day, you don't want them to necessarily deal with it themselves. There's a lot of potential mistakes, and you need to be able to call out why and why they should trust you.
Absolutely.
And that's what we like to do. So it doesn't, if you don't want to do it yourself, that's why we're here. And we will take it off your plate and save you the time. And we're more reliable than ChatGPT, but we're not just trying to sell ourselves here. We're just kind of trying to highlight the reasons that ChatGPT might not be the best way to do that.
Oh, exactly. And give you the ability to do what matters most for your business, which is interact with clients. And for us, this is where this is what we do. This is what we enjoy doing. And, what are we looking at? Well, start doing these things now. So get in and ask ChatGPT and Google these questions, right? What are the common questions from your client? Oh, Shauna, you were going to say
This is one of my favorite ones. Sorry, I know I've been talking a lot, but this one I get really excited about because it's all the opportunities you get to tell ChatGPT that it's wrong. So, I've asked it, what are the different types of trusts and what's the difference between revocable and irrevocable? And it'll tell me all the different types, but it won't clarify that 90% of what it just told me are irrevocable trusts, right? And so then you get to be like, well, wait, what's the difference? And this is where ChatGPT also excels. It always says, great question, and it makes you seem very smart. Whereas advisors don't necessarily want to, they assume that their clients are never going to have a dumb question. So if you ever act or react in a way like, oh, that's my clients are too smart to be asking that, they're going to turn around and they're going to ask ChatGPT because no question is too dumb. Every question is great question. That's so smart. Great observation. You'll also start to see how the algorithm and AI filters other people's information and the other information on the internet. So you can kind of start to see your way in. On the previous slide, we mentioned original data, which doesn't mean that you have to go out there and do your own research or become, the next St. Louis Fed. It just means that you can crunch some numbers. So if you can take data that's already available, do the math, calculate percent change, do some of those things that AI, not that it can't do it, but it's not going to think to do it. Now you have an original data set, and that's going to fill in a gap. It's an original thought. So there are ways that you can, by just asking the questions that your clients are going to ask, you will start to see so many opportunities. And this isn't just the content that you want to put on your site or create. This can also aid the conversations you have when clients come to you. It can make you a better advisor in general.
Definitely. And help you understand how people are getting to you and help you understand what they're asking about, because that just makes things much easier to dial in on good, authentic content that's built for you. But we're also cognizant of, you do that from a foundation of good non-niche content. So you have that credibility that, to use the transmission analogy, you also know how other parts of a car work. So so you start with that foundation and you build on top of it with really good, consistently done content that identifies your business and makes you stand out. So,
like if you're going to go get your transmission fixed at a mechanic, you want to know that they're not just like a weird transmission nerd. You want to know that they're a mechanic that also knows engines. They're not going to break your engine or your alternator when they're fixing your transmission because they know everything, right? Because you might need them to fix another part of your car at some point. Because no one's going to a financial advisor, or we don't want them to come to you just to fix one problem. We want that to be an ongoing relationship. So that's where that basic foundation of content really does matter.
Yep. So if we take everything we've been talking about and boil it down, what is this? Well, start with a strong site. And to Colin's point, the center of the spider web, right? Your website should be your hub, and everything you do from a marketing standpoint should connect back to it. And understand what you're trying to solve for, and you leverage AI when it makes sense, but is it going to be the best solution for you long term? And especially when it comes to content, the best approach is human-led and AI-supported. And like we said before, the wave is starting to roll in and it's getting higher and higher. Now's the time to move. Optimize at this point. Don't wait. This is the time to make things happen. So
I
And
think that's the fun thing too, is like asking if AI is the best solution, because if your problem is, I don't have enough time to do this, then AI isn't necessarily the best default. But if your problem is, I don't understand how to write this code, then AI might be a great option because it can kind of help decode that for you and help you understand if you need to go to that professional. So it's really just understanding why you're using AI and remembering that AI is a tool that you still, the same way that you don't want AI to take your job because you offer so much more but you can as an advisor use it as a tool. It's the same when it comes to your content and your marketing. It is incredibly handy. It's just you want it to be a road to a solution and not the end. It's the means, not the end, I guess, is the better way of putting it.
absolutely. And so we'll take some question, put your questions into the Q&A section here, but Content 151 and Myriad and Impact, this is what we do. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was the starter blog, and what we're doing with that so that you can have people stay on your site and want to work with you. And this program that we're doing lets you work with human beings and actual content experts to craft things that are specific to you and your business and your firm, and put those into play so that you're getting a really rich base to springboard off of, which is so important. And you think about all of the things you do in a day and how much you would love to be able to do content, or how much we hear that it'd be great if I could do this content, but I don't have time. I'm not a good writer, all of those different things. This is where we come in to help with that. So, Shauna, did you have anything else, or?
Well, I wanted to make sure that we looked at the Q&A in terms of our starter. So Paul, if you are able to pull that up. For our starter blog, a lot of what we love about this is it is that baseline content to kind of prove your credibility and authority. But because you're working with humans on developing it, we are able to start to identify, even if we don't do it in the starter blog, a lot of the questions that we're going to ask are going to help you learn to use those tools and to start to identify those other areas that you can lean in on. And we ask those pointed questions to help you kind of figure out what else you might need help on. And then our companies all sort of offer some of that back end help or some of the other help that you might need, or can refer you to the right people. I always joke that we like to be a marketing fiduciary, where if we can't do it, we'll refer you. Like, we're not going to be able to help you find office space closer to the center of downtown to optimize your Google local reviews, but that's something Myriad can help you with. PR is always going to be a huge win for search results and AI, because it's going to add to that credibility, because you're going to get those backlinks and you're going to be cited in media and all of that, but we don't do PR on that. Colin and Impact do. So it's just understanding, like, you might not need that right now, but knowing where you can turn when you need that support. And I was seeing your question with Finit. That, can you clarify what exactly you mean by that? Are you talking about the accounting software and Google reviews, or?
No. So what they're talking about is, if you're part of FiNet or Wells Fargo Financial, they have a pretty restricted working, they have a lot of restrictions on Google My Business. So the reviews part of it is typically hidden from FiNet firms. So that would be one thing that to keep in mind, but that doesn't mean that you don't do what you need to do with your Google Your Business profile, and work with FiNet to get that set up so that it's the best for your firm. So
I will say this. So I've been in-house at a broker dealer at TD, and I've also done agency and content work at Wells, B of A, and others, Merrill. I have a lot of experience negotiating with compliance departments, and I know that it can be a headache, and I know that there are some issues that you can't get past them on, and that it is very important to pick your battles. Google reviews is a battle you should pick. You might not necessarily win, but they are ultimately going to have to come around on this because it just is the future, and ultimately they all do. So being the first sort of in line when that approval comes through and just making the case repeatedly for sort of how you're going to use it. There are other ways that you can approach testimonials that are not Google reviews, that might be easier to get past compliance, but they're not going to be as beneficial to you. So if there's one fight I can suggest you pick with compliance, and it doesn't have to be combative, right? Like I've spent so much time negotiating with compliance where I'm like, all right, if you don't like this, why? What if we did this? What if we did this? Could we try this instead? Some of it depends on who your compliance rep is and how friendly they are. But I'm always available to help people strategize because negotiating with compliance is one of my favorite sports.
It's a full contact sport too sometimes. So, and I know that we see the same thing, and I know that that's a question that comes up quite a bit too, is just how we work on these blogs to get you going, what that compliance process looks like. And we work with, our 400 plus clients, and working with Finet on a lot of different things. We make that, we have experience in that as well. And between the two of us creating these blogs for you, it will make, we'll be able to get in and roll up our sleeves and get those things in the right frame with compliance. So, we had another question come up. Kyle, I've never considered the back end of my website and its searchability. Is that a question for my website guy? Also, what is schema markup? So
I was just typing a reply in case we didn't have time for it.
Yeah.
But the short answer is yes, it's a back end thing. Yes, ask your web guy. Schema markup is a map to your website that happens behind the scenes. You can actually ask AI you can play around with it by putting in a link to a page and asking AI to write a schema markup. But the fun thing about it is, like, say there's a bunch of images, or say you're referencing a person. So say it's our invite here, and I don't want to put every one of my credentials on the invite. On the back end, you can say, all of my history, or on yours, all of yours. And so you can kind of include fun details that maybe you don't want to clutter the front end page with all of your credentials on every picture. You can still put that in the schema markup on the back end so that when the site crawls it, it understands what it's looking at. You're giving it a cheat sheet, and it can be longer than the actual page, right? So it's a very fun tool that most people don't know about because people like you haven't heard about the back end and they don't have the schema markup. So it's a way you can edge out your competitors, and they might not know you're doing it.
No, and that's something that we can help with as well. So, it's an interesting thing to go underneath.
A lot of people don't have a web guy, right? Or their web guy isn't responsive. So, like, the short answer is yes, but also not everyone wants to take the time to do this. Not every page on your site is going to necessarily warrant that, right? Some people are going to want to prioritize a schema markup on certain pages versus others. This can be like a whole level of nerdiness. Like, this is almost getting into tax strategy, right? Where there's a high level of like check off tax loss harvesting. But if you really want to get in the weeds, it's going to be extra layers, and there's multiple experts involved.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it is fun to get into that space. So,
well,
I love nerding out on these things, if you couldn't tell.
we are at the top of the hour. It was a wonderful hour to nerd out with both you and Paul there. I think what I would end this webinar with was, now that you have an understanding of how AI is working, what's under the hood of the internet, marketing is going to be essential. You got to be doing something when it comes to marketing. Whether or not you reach out to one of our firms or work with Myriad and content on a starter blog, or whether you take what you've learned about AI and try and do something yourself, you have to be marketing yourself out there today, or you are just going to be buried under the AI, the organic search. You're going to be at the bottom and no one's going to be able to find you. You got to find your message. You got to find your ideal client profile. You got to be doing something. You got to be on social. You got to be on Google Business. You got to be doing it. So with that,
Absolutely.
thank you, Shauna. Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
It was a wonderful hour. We should definitely do it again sometime.
Absolutely. And we will be,
Thanks
this
so much.
recording will be going out to everybody tomorrow.
You can include
as
how
it
to get in touch
compiles.
with us too, and
Yes,
yeah, and all the
we'll
details as
include all
well.
the contact information as well. So I hope everybody found it educational and enjoyable, and have a good night, and we'll be in touch. So
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a good evening.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.